Hello, sir.
Doc Julian, we are live now. I'll chat you po.
Are we live?
Yeah, are we live na? I'll chat you po.
Thank you. Will you start? I'll have to put in my screen.
Doc Jul,
Yeah.
yes.
Can you enable me to share my Francis, can I share my PowerPoint?
For a while, Doc Julian.
Thank you.
I'll check the technical settings first. I'll chat you po.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association free webinar series. And for today's webinar, we will be tackling tele and web counseling. Continued support despite the COVID-19 crisis by Doc Julian Montano. But before we proceed, let me remind everyone that the PGCA is now on the following social media uh, sites. We are in Facebook. Don't forget to like and follow our main social media account, this PGCA official Facebook page. After the webinar, that's where you can see the link of our post test and evaluation. So you'll be given later a specific time period for your post test and evaluation, and please do that immediately. Then you can follow us also on Twitter at official PGCA, and right now we are streaming live via PGCA Philippine Counselor YouTube channel, and this YouTube stream is being shared to our Facebook page and other, and we would like also to thank our other sharers as of the moment. At this time, before we start our webinar, we would like to call on Father RC to lead us into prayer. Father RC, you.
Yes. Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, eternal God, we are about to begin our webinar. And we do so with the awareness that without your divine presence here at our center of our webinar, and also within ourselves, our work will be empty. Grace us with your wisdom and vision. Gift us with your holy humor and humility, so that not only this webinar, but all our lives may be a webinar place for your kingdom. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father RC, for leading us into prayer. Now let us give Doc Julian the time for our webinar. Now let us welcome Doc Julian Montano for the tele and the web counseling.
Thank you, Francis. Good morning to all. Again, we're here back for another webinar. This time it will be it'll be on tele and web counseling. So just to introduce myself again, I am Julian, and the main things that I do would be counseling and psychotherapy. I do a lot also of clinical supervision, being the clinical supervisor of InTouch Philippines, and then also the supervised internship coordinator of the PhD counseling program of De La Salle University, Dasmariñas. And then I do also psychological assessment. I teach counseling courses, and then I do expert witnessing. My specialization in terms of counseling would be more on marital relationships, relational issues, trauma, and then very much linked to that would be depression, anxiety, and multicultural issues, career, mental toughness, and then conflict management. My educational background would be I finished my PhD in counseling psychology at De La Salle, Manila, and then I had my double master degree in counseling, social, and organizational psychology at the Columbia University. Okay, so today we have a lot of things to discuss, but we have only technically 2 hours, right? Or less than 2 hours. So to start with, this is just the outline. We'll be doing an introduction, then a brief history, and then I'd like to present some names, the definitions of terms and theories that are very much related to telecounseling. And then we jump into rapid setup of your shift to from face-to-face to online service. And then we'll focus into what happens when the appointment starts, the online tele-counseling session starts. What happens there and then until the end. And then I chose some critical key ethical standards that we would discuss, and in relation to them also the practice that is being demanded of us in terms of these ethical standards. Okay, so we have a lot. It's a lot of things. There are a lot more I had to cut because obviously this is on telecounseling is now considered also a specialization, and therefore training of this is a bit more than just 2 hours or an hour and a half. Okay, so our tele web counseling. I think this course was kind of designed or created because as a response to what we need now, right? We've been in lockdown, and therefore we couldn't see our students, our counselees, our clients, and therefore we kind of was brought into that kind of service, and therefore so we find ourselves doing web counseling, telecounseling, and so there's much of a demand to understand. All right, now that we have a bit more time, let's see what this really is, and what can we do better so that we can deliver the service better. So this one here, right? Tele and web counseling. We use more the video. I'll be talking more about videos, but I will also say something about the tele and other written communications like email, text, letters, and we'll also talk about that. Then we have also obviously the history. Let's go into the history of and in terms of history, obviously at the start we've been met by some resistance, right, and suspicion, about with this work. I remember also when in the late 80s, already in the late 80s, when we started to have the desktops, if you remember the desktops in our offices. Before, it was still the big frame of the computers, right? And we were connected to this big setups and everything. Then now that time, about late 80s, we were having the first desktops in our offices. And we were also using it in the guidance counseling. I was working in a guidance counseling in a school, and we were using it as assistance in terms of counseling. And I remember people were saying, we were saying, would we be changed? Would we replaced by computers? And we were saying, how could that be? How the personal touch and everything like that. The relationship, face-to-face relationship. How could that happen? Be replaced by computers? And so there were resistance. However, as the technology advanced, we started feeling also a bit more relaxed with it. We kind of accepted it, but still, right, there was still a bit of resistance. However, even if we were less resistant to it and everything like that, uh, we were feeling that um, we were feeling then that we could do more of that. No. However, always we should know that it is different from face to face, and therefore, as we go into that change, into that shift, we should be a bit more thoughtful and have a planned approach to it. And then, because it's technology, we usually think that it is something recent, ngayon lang, no, the internet and everything. But if you really look at it, I did some research and found out that the father of telebehavioral health was Carl Rogers. Remember him? I think a lot of us remember him, right? With person-centered therapy. And because in the 40s and 50s, he was using this for his counseling, telecounseling, and also in terms of he was using this also for supervision, telesupervision. And remember, he was also using
Benji, ang ganda ng ano niya, tignan mo.
wording, no?
Anong ginagamit niya dito, Apple?
We have some interference, and this is part of experience of online, right? We have to control. Later, we will talk about that, no? And therefore, he was using. Remember, he was recording his sessions, their sessions, and his counselors, his students' sessions, and they were studying it, right? And that is a kind also of online work, or right, or distance work, right? In terms of, and in the 90s, remember, in the 90s, no, we technically there wasn't much about telecounseling. It was really more of telemedicine. And but however, already remember, right? Remember the hotlines, the hotlines that we have for crisis intervention. This is a sort of telemental health work, right? Because we deliver our crisis intervention support via telephone. And we were doing this. In Touch Philippines was already doing this 36 years ago. And that would be about 1980 something, And so a little bit of that was already there, right? And however, in the mainstream, it wasn't really seen, obviously, as telecounseling. And in 1990, it started to become a phenomenon around the worldwide, especially in Europe, in Germany, and in the UK, and also in Australia. In America, in the US, they were saying that it wasn't that developed yet. And people had to go to the UK, Germany to be able to converse, to be able to consult with experts and exchange ideas. In 1995, first paid for counseling service was recorded in UK, and then in 2001, the first ethical guidelines were written by the British Association for Counseling and Psychotherapy. Right, it was the first, and since then, they've edited the code of ethics in relation to online practice. They've edited it a lot of times. I think they say that they've edited so many times, more than any other topics of ethical issues, because precisely maybe because of also fast development of technology, and we had to adapt. In the 2000, again, we started doing research, and this is very important. I would like to make sure that I say this thing here. the research have shown that the counseling, right, counseling therapy, when done well, is as good as face-to-face work. And this is what they are saying about the research that they've done with this thing here. And also, now what they say is that what we really need to do and find out now in further research is when and how we how to do know how can we know when to use which one, right? Which are the top the issues that are better in face-to-face or telecounseling or both, right? So also in our short experience with InTouch Philippines, we've been doing precisely we've been training people in terms of crisis support through the telephone, and then also in terms of telecounseling itself. We started doing this already a bit more significantly. We've been doing it a lot for about maybe I remember about 10 years ago. However, a bit more as a group, we were doing it about in the past 3 to 5 years. And in our little experience, obviously these are anecdotal data yet as of now. We've seen how effective it could be. Like for example, with anxiety clients. Before we were very skeptical to use telecounseling because we were saying, oh, how can we control our anxious clients over the phone or over in video when we're not there face to face. However, we then realized that it is possible. We've had some proofs or experiences of success in these terms. And for example, with kids, working with kids, right? How can we play with them? How can we do play therapy? And more, right? We've tried to find ways to do that, to replace that that atmosphere of playfulness in terms of in the therapy and everything. And also, for example, with adolescents, in terms of encouraging them to do their homeworks, their assignments, you know, and therefore we kind of realized that we could do more frequent counseling sessions, but shorter, you know, and seeing them and maybe doing the therapy together with them. So there are different ways, right, that we can come up with to be able to work on the counseling experience. But I would want to say also that obviously they've seen that the history, the development of telecounseling has been led more by clients than counselors. And we can see it now, right? We right now, because of the situation, we are now diving into possibility or been thrown into practicing telecounseling. Okay, so let's start with some definitions and theories. Let's start with the name. Health, telemedicine, generally for medical information. Telebehavioral has been one of the first names that has been connected to mental health perspective, right? Then it has been called e-therapy, e-supervision by the addiction professionals, you know. And there was a research done in terms of how many names was given to telecounseling. They came up with 36 names. So e-therapy, telecounseling, online practice, e-psychology, all 36 names. So if we're Googling it, we really have to, it's not easy to be updated into it because there are so many names that are being used. Okay, so a few of the important terms. So here, let's start with New York. This is a definition of New York, which relates to telepractice. It says telepractice is defined as the provision of professional service over geographical distances by means of modern telecommunication technology. So anything that is at a distance and using telecommunication technology is telepractice, which is inclusive of telecounsel. All right. Now, there are these other terms, the synchronous and asynchronous versus asynchronous. Synchronous is real time, right? I am now talking, you are watching me. So we're exchanging data in real time, right? So we do telecounseling, we work with our clients. That is synchronous communication, right? Real time. Then there's the asynchronous. Asynchronous would be, we would be communicated, but not in real time. Like for example, we will record this training, and maybe after a week, somebody else would want to watch it. So that is asynchronous, right? We're communicating, but not in real time. No. Now, for example, text. Text can be both synchronous or asynchronous, right? Text could be, we could be texting, right, on real time, instant. We're answering one another, in texting. But then we can be also texting. I text you, but because you don't have your phone with you, or you answer, or you're busy or something, you answer later. So that's asynchronous, right? Email, again, chatting could be synchronous, and email is usually asynchronous, right? Okay. So encryption. Encryption is another very important term, because this is related to the to the data privacy that we have to keep, to follow, right? The data privacy law. Encryption is practically defined as your data is translated into a code, so that hackers who enter will not see what you've written, but they're seeing the code that which is the translation of what you've written. Usually, I'm not a techie person here, but for example, I receive email which is encrypted, and therefore to be able to open that email, I need a password. So then I can open that. So it's only me who could read that, or those people who have the password. And then also they put another layer of protection that in a week's time or in a day, that email will disappear, right? So again, that encryption, okay? Then it has been asked a lot that what counseling approaches are suited for telecounseling. Yeah, humanistic, existential, psychodynamic, CBT. Now the later ones, the solution-focused brief therapy, emotionally focused therapy. The later ones. Are these counseling approaches suited for telecounseling? Now, many of the prominent institutions, organizations, and people who have been involved in doing online practice say that mainstream theories of psychotherapeutic practice can be transferred to online practice. Right? And these are people, I just want to present to you some of the institutions that, in a sense, we owe this knowledge, this practice. First one would be the Online Therapy Institute in UK. They've been very, very much involved in this at the very, very start. And then there's the Workplace Option, is an employee assistance program provider, global provider, and they've used a lot. They've a lot of experience in tele and web counseling. They have in their only in their main office, for example, and they are in different. They have their main, other big offices around the world, in Europe, in Asia, in India, and other places. Only in their center at Raleigh, North Carolina, they have 300 counselors, all giving online services, and therefore they've done research in the effectivity of this, and we've learned a lot from them also. Now, I have here a picture of Lori Stretch. I placed her here because she's one of the people that I was able to learn more and take from in terms of this presentation. She is one of the leading experts of um, online practice in terms of also of ethical issues, practices, and she is based in right now in Chicago, but she has practiced a lot in North Carolina, also in Raleigh. Uh, so again, these are the people, and they all say that mainstream theories of psychotherapeutic practice can transfer online. Now, however, obviously, the video link or telephone is not the same as face to face, di ba? Like just imagine yung turn taking, who talks, I talk, in face to face, you talk, you have all my body expressions, when I want to enter into saying something, and I also have yours, and I see that. And sometimes we overlap. However, when we overlap, we still understand what we're saying because the person can stop and everything like that, right? Obviously, in online counseling, we do not have that luxury. If we talk at the same time, there's the blur, the sounds and everything. And for example, many of us use the thing of the encourager, yeah, yeah, that's true, like that. You do that in telecounseling, in the video, again, right? There's a blurring of the sound, and maybe you don't understand what the other person is saying, right? So the thing is, we what is important is practice, right? Or even being able to say, okay, we have to be careful not to talk over one another, and or and less use, maybe use less the but instead more of the nodding, and later we will talk about also eye contact and everything. But it is different, right? It is really different, and we have to be able to. But again, the main thing of counseling, right? The question is, can deep, effective, and affect-filled relationship really be forged online? What do you think? Yeah, can we really develop a deep, affect-filled relationship, which is important in counseling online, right? Outside of therapy, it is answered. There's a big yes, right? I mean, people fall in love, they become intimate, they get married, start with a relationship that started maybe in online, right? Nowadays we connect not with through online, not only through with our colleagues, but also with our loved ones through online, right? Just think about the OFW families. They have, many of them have practices of even putting on, leaving their laptops, their videos on, as they cook, as they do their everyday thing, just to be able to feel, right, the connection and everything like that, right? So yes, it is possible. Then another theory would be the online inhibition effect of solar. This was this inhibition effect has already been existent even before solar came into the picture. However, he was the one who, in 2004, who did a lot more of studies about this. No, and so it's the theory is this, right? That in when we're online, we have that tendency, right, of not being ourselves, of maybe pretending, but that possibility of maybe being pretending who we are, as shown in these pictures here. And these two pigeons are saying, for example, what are other words for uninhibited, right? And the other person says it's unrestrained, unreserved, abundant, unbridled, uncontrolled, open, frank, candid, unconstrained, wild, right? I mean, these are behaviors that are a bit more possible in online work. So there's that online inhibition effect. And here we are saying here that also we've seen this phenomenon in online counseling, that many of the more private or more difficult issues or information come out more easily in telecounseling than in face-to-face. That sometimes we counselors feel that, oops, this information is already now being presented when maybe we're not yet ready for, our relationship is not yet ready to handle that, right? And so it's good that we know this, that this could happen, that people can be more open in terms of their more sensitive issues in telecounseling, and therefore we can take care of that. We can manage that. We can help them with those things. So again, in terms of the client relationship, client-counselor relationship is always number one, right? It could define, it's the single factor that could define the efficiency of our counseling, right? So your face-to-face counseling skills will still be needed in online counseling, right? You are counselors, you are trained to be counselors. And so all these skills you will need to use in online counseling, right? You are not starting from zero. In fact, you are coming from a good foundation, right? Theoretical, practice, experiential foundation. And it is now the unfamiliarity with the device that could be the distraction, right? We're using this technology, and it's not, we're not used to, I mean, I'm talking with this person here, it's real time, but I don't have him or her in my office, and we're so far away, right? And so again, so it's, what's important is that we are immersed into that practice until we are so into the counseling, and also our knowledge of the technology is so is so controlled that that unfamiliarity anymore is not anymore a disturbance, and as if we are just simply doing counseling. I like this phrase here, this sentence here, that says, attend to the needs of the frame, both the literal and the metaphorical frames involved, and you will be much better able to concentrate on what they contain, right? There is the literal frame. I'm seeing you in a laptop frame, but it is you there. I want to understand also that frame, that metaphorical frame that I am seeing inside the literal frame, right? And connect with you. Okay, here, this one is interesting because this shows how we can still connect and establish relationships even if there is a distance. Cyber psychology teaches us that once connected with someone online, we still perceive the other person and the relationship between us. We can still perceive the other person and the relationship that we have. But we may also experience it in a different way, right? It could be different. It could be a different, it's a new experience. So it's a different, it could feel different. So here, there is the definition of presence as a social richness. The extent to which a medium is perceived as sociable, warm, sensitive, personal, or intimate when it is used to interact with other people. So think about the video. Video, I see the person, right? I can talk with. So there's a bit of I can feel that it's personal, that it's intimate, that it's sensitive, right? A bit more than emails or texts or letters. However, if you really think about it, letters can also be very intimate, right? Can be very warm. So what they're saying is that the question is always how socially rich you can make your use of the means of communication and how much your client can do likewise. So what is important is, right, how I use it, how I use that medium, and how my client can use that also, right? So again, that presence as social richness. Then, for example, presence as transportation. You are there, right? So in which the user experiences the communication as if they had been transported to another place. It's like, right? We're here, we're working, and you're so far away, but we're feeling that we're communicating because we are brought into a virtual space that we share, and we feel that we are together there in that virtual space, and we share that space. And so we feel that we are able to communicate and to be able to be together. Then another one would be the presence of immersion. It says that precisely if we're immersed into the dynamic, we forget about already the other technicalities around it, because we're so immersed into it. And so that's technically what these definitions are pointing at, right? That pointing at that when a person fails to perceive or acknowledge and responds as he or she would if the medium were not there, right? It's already there. And remember, and this is what is important. This is what is really important, right? For our tele-counseling work, for building and maintaining that therapeutic relationship, that counseling relationship. That presence does not have to be physical to be experienced. Now, we go into transference. They've said that online kind of lends easily to transference, to possibility of transference. Yeah, it could be. It seems, and here are some explanations why it can happen. You see, because of the medium that we're using, right? There are less information, clear informations or information that is being passed, and because of that, there's a little less of you that is being communicated or that the client is getting to know. Because of that, they have to fill in with their imaginations, fill in the blanks, right? And they come up with an imagined version of you. And so it may say something about you, but it certainly says something about your client's worldview and the way they choose to render you in their mind, right? It's more of them. It's It talks about really more of how they want to see you. In fact, having fewer cues about the counselor, the client is closer to being able to create in his her mind the counselor he or she wishes for, right? So it's more of an imagined. The client may benefit from this, obviously, but also the client can benefit more because in as we go through this therapy, and this is how we handle also transference in face-to-face, we can talk about that, right? We can talk about, we can bring back the client to the real person you are and the real relationship we're experiencing, but in comparison to what you've imagined and where is that coming from and what can we understand from that? What can we learn from that? Again, also, I'd like, in terms of transference, right? It's like maybe, if you see a picture of a radio announcer that you've been listening to, and you feel like he doesn't seem to be that person, right? Because you create a picture of that radio with the voice, the sound, the voice that you're hearing. You kind of create a picture of yourself, and when of that announcer, and then when you see him, a picture, oh, it's different. Or even also when you read an author of a book, right? And as you read, and then you hear his real voice, and you say, oh, it's different again, because as you read, you kind of give him a voice or her a voice, right? And it may be different to what is real, usually, because that voice that you've given that author is really coming from you. It's what you want, that author to have that voice. Okay. Here is, there's this study here in terms of in Facebook profiles and posts, similar to the additional concentration and tuning in to small nuances of tones and expressions that helps when working intensely by telephone. You see, this Facebook profile post, it's a survey, right? Obviously, it's not journal reviewed research. It's a survey, and it showed that that looking at the profiles, posts, what you post, and everything of someone in the Facebook, a stranger can define the personality traits of that person better than a person who is a friend of that person offline. No, and not the other way around. No. A stranger is in better, can define it better, the personality traits of that person. So it's similar to what we are doing because maybe we are more in tune, right? We're listening. Like, for example, the telephone counseling, using telephone medium. We don't. There's no visual cue. We're just listening. We're intent, right? The small sounds, the movement is he intense? Is the accents of the voice? We're listening to that, right? We're listening to his emotion through the audio that we are hearing. And because of that intent, because of that intense listening, we are maybe picking up certain things that maybe we won't pick up when we are there, say, seated face to face, and we're not that involved, right? And therefore, always check your understanding, because many times also this can give new information, this could give new perceptions, but also there could be misunderstandings, obviously. But again, if we check, right, we can just simply throw it back and talk about it and verify it and validate it, right? But there is more of that sensitivity of that perception. So it is important to talk about the counseling process explicitly, to talk about it. Like, for example, the personal, emotional. Let's talk. How are you feeling in terms of this using this technology? Are you nervous? Are you fearful that we will be cut off? Let's talk about that, no? And then the technical aspects also, no, to be able to practice, to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to use. This is a safe platform. This is how we use this. Let's practice, no? And so to ensure your shared understanding and working alliance remains strong, it is to put time on these things here, to be able to understand better what is happening, both emotionally, personally, and technically and practically. Okay, now we go into rapid setup. Here is, so we start, right? We feel that we have to, classes aren't starting yet, our students are at home, but we have to be guidance counselors. We have to continue our work. And so we have to set up. So, I mean, and some are in private practice, some, but more or less, we can adapt to this. Obviously, in guidance counselor, what I'm thinking also is about more of group work. And obviously, that is another also, and maybe that could be in future training that we can have, how to do group work in online. Well, in related to that, also couples therapy online. Again, that's another. But here it's really more of one-on-one, right? So you usually see the best thing is to kind of study a bit what you've been doing already. How do you set up your face-to-face schedules and everything, work and everything? So maybe you see your clients weekly, 50 minutes per session. Instead of seeing them in your office, you see them online. Obviously, then there's no more travel, no more counselees. Also for your counselees, right? And then, so one thing important is to schedule extra time in between clients. Usually it is recommended to have 30 minutes between two clients, 30-minute break. And this is for technology, to work on the technology if ever, and also for self-care. Self-care, because it is so important. They're saying precisely that online work is much tiring than face-to-face work. Because precisely, right? You have to exert more effort in trying to be with your client, understand your client, right? And important thing, right? So that break is very important. Obviously, this is not an ethical issue or anything like that, but however, right? It's a best practice. You can have that 30-minute break in between your clients to be able to take care also of yourself, to manage all the technology and everything like that, right? Then we go into for new clients prior to first session. There's this thing here that it's again a recommendation. It's a best practice again. You do not have to do this, but obviously it's been seen very useful. It's a 30-minute no charge session before meeting the client, and wherein you just talk about more technology. Your objective is to be able to make him feel calm in terms of technology. In a sense, you're also doing a screening practice here, right? If this person is fitted for telecounseling. No, and so here in this 30-minute session, there is no counseling that's happening, right? It's all about logistics, how to start, what we will do when if ever we have a breakdown, if the communication is cut, what do we do, and all these things like that, right? So it's really more of making the person, making sure that the person is also comfortable with the technology that we're using, and to prepare them, and to see. Then there you are, right? Your counseling room becomes now the frame of your laptop, and there obviously you want to present a look similar to your face-to-face experience. They ask, okay, what should be my background? Well, your background, as much as possible, should be kind of have the feel of your office, right? And also to be, a private place, quiet place. You have to ensure that others are aware also of the change. That also, for example, if you're working from home, that your kids do not enter all of a sudden all there, and are seen in the video or sound, music, and everything like that interrupts. So it's like putting a do not disturb sign outside of your office when you are in session, right? So just to make sure about that. Then attend to all the practical, emotional aspects of that may affect the change. Do they have a device they can use? Are they familiar with the video calls? How comfortable are they with seeing and being seen on video? Do they have a private environment from which to talk? Do they have a good, stable internet connection that is unlikely to fail part way through the session, right? Questions of this sort. And if you are unable to unsure about the change to work online, in general for yourself, you have to practice, right? You could also, I've done some practices with my colleagues, and also even the simplest thing, right? How do I look? How does my client see me? If I'm doing this and I'm doing that, how do I manage this? We're usually using the Zoom, right? Can I show some graphs to my or some posters to my client? How can I use that? How can I do that, right? How can I make my picture smaller than her or his picture, right? So all those things, right, are things that we can learn and practice. And then you do not want to leave your client in a situation where they are left alone in a heightened and vulnerable emotional state. Ensure that the interruption and its effects are kept minimal. This one's here, for example, could mean also sometimes, even sometimes just when the connection is cut off and boom, the screen just turns black, and you're working on something very sensitive, and something like that. And therefore, if we have ways to be able to that we agree on beforehand, like for example, okay, if we get cut, we give one another 5 minutes to reconnect, right? And then if we're not able to do that in 5 minutes, then we call up. We have our telephones ready. We call up, and we then agree whether we can manage this, how we can start again, and if not, we can reschedule, right? So it's good that we have these protocols that are ready to be able to use. And lastly, also in terms of rapid, it's important also that you are supervised in your work. The clinical supervision or the counseling supervision that we practice that we have. It is important. And obviously, this is also done through telephone or web. Now, the appointment arrives, okay? So as usual, you're scheduling, for example, if you're using Zoom, it's there. We know 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock p.m. We meet. I send you already the invitation, and you're just going to click that invitation, that invite, right? We make sure that our clients are also in a quiet environment. We inform them, right? I mean, usually, right? If we don't inform them, usually we'll find them in their on their bed, in their pajamas, and just sometimes, they come running, and because they just woke up and they don't want to be late, and just to make sure that we are in a good, that also they need to be in a conducive place, and also in a conducive continence. And then clients may like to have soft drinks. Okay, that's good, or a cup of tea or something, but not food. And then we also tell them that any inappropriate behavior or dressing will result to termination of the sessions, with the charging, if ever you charge the client in terms of private practice. Then the counselor usually waits, right? So that when the client arrives, then they start the session. Usually the session is 15 minutes. And one thing important is to tell your client that both of you will not record unless they have discussed this in detail previously. Now, there are exceptions, right? Sometimes they ask you to, you're teaching them, for example, self-regulating exercises, like, for example, deep breathing, mental exercises, mental focusing. These are techniques that you are using, and you're asking them to practice this at home, right? And there are a lot of things, also these ones in YouTube and videos, right? But they want you. It's a personal thing, right? So maybe you can agree. Okay, you can record that. And for practice, but only for practice, right? Please do not post it in your Facebook page, and everybody can see and look, my counselor taught me this, and it's so helpful and everything like that. Please do not do that. Make sure that they use it only for their own consumption. Another one would be late clients. Yes, there are late clients, right? Also in telecounseling. Usually, right, we give them about 20 minutes in face-to-face, but maybe now we can give them a bit more of a half-hour leeway, right? Because maybe even if there's no traffic, it's the technology sometimes. Sometimes once I was using Zoom, and I feel that I'm able to manage Zoom quite well already in terms of telecounseling. I'm not in terms of teaching or whatever. There are a lot more other platforms there. But however, all of a sudden it says that you have to download and so what's happening? Because then after I found that I had to upgrade my Zoom version, and so again I didn't know that. Obviously, so it's good to be able to know all those things and ask experts for help. Then at the end of the session, clients should end the call, a video call, when they have said goodbye, right? But there is a consideration here. Clients will be reminded when it is time for the session to end, right? Usually, right, this phenomenon, right, in telecounseling, in face-to-face, when a client in the middle of the sessions feels that he wants to walk out of the session, they're all the process, right? They have to deal with the counselor in terms of the embarrassment, if ever the anger. They have to walk to the door, open the door, walk through the corridor, greet people, maybe reception, then leave, right? There's all that. There's all that process. But in face to face, if you imagine it, if you think about it, it's just a click of the mouse, and you're done. You're gone, right? You're not there anymore. So we have to be able to manage that, and especially this is managed also towards at the end, right? When we say goodbye, and when we say goodbye, so to kind of make it more acceptable, a continuation, more in tune with the work that we've done. We've worked so much in terms of emotions, in terms of relationship and everything, and then the way we terminate the session also has to should not interrupt that, right? And so maybe you agree, okay, we say goodbye and then you terminate, or if not, then I say I terminate, but I make sure that I'm saying goodbye, and in terms of also, you see, when you turn off the screen, that person enters immediately to his or her world offline. It's there immediately. So sometimes it's a shocking experience, right? Because obviously, in face to face, you're there, you terminate, you maybe accompany your client to the outside door. You say goodbye, then they drive home, or they walk home, or right. There's the process of entering into the here, especially if they're at home, they are back to their world. There's that, and so it's good to be able to kind of, maybe some practices are that they agree on activities, simple activities, maybe drinking coffee, taking a shower sometimes, to be able to kind of a process, a ritual to enter into the offline world again, from your, so that, so again, these are ways to be able to terminate and help also our clients to re-enter their world offline. And then you also, obviously, you have to inform them that if ever there is here, you could email me if there is need for, and later we will talk about that also. Okay, we're kind of here. I have a question here. In creating distance relationship, okay, who is responsible for setting appropriate boundaries? A, client. B, clinician. Both clinician and client. D, none of the above. Who is responsible? Okay, I hope you're thinking about B. B as in boy, the clinician. You are the one who is responsible. Okay, obviously the client has to do her own part, but you are the one who's responsible to make sure that your client knows what has to be done, and what are the important things to follow. So sensitive personal information should be sufficiently private, right? Encrypted, as we talked about that. You have to have good bandwidth for your internet, your video platforms. There are video platforms that we will talk about have to be tested. So again, never use public Wi-Fi, or because these are not encrypted, people can get your information from this. Airports, Starbucks, Burger King. Then which internet provider are you with? Is it good? Is it giving you, good connection? How about your client? You have to check that. You have to make sure that there is good connection, that you can connect, right? Um, so we have some experiences in terms of suicide cases, right? That all of a sudden we need to support, but connection is weak, and usually we found that Zoom can be easily more connected with rather than WhatsApp, different things, right? So again, we have to prepare this beforehand. It is your responsibility to ensure the adequate privacy reliability are available. Most major failings, this is something more. Major failings in privacy protection come through human error. Even if we are encrypted and everything, it's still human error that is most dangerous. Like, for example, walking away from the screen without closing down the relevant programs, right? After that, you leave it there and everything, and people can see it again. Your child, your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, or even maybe people are hearing what you're saying, or shutting down the video window on your device. You have to turn that off. For example, sometimes maybe you use your internet of your employer, right? And see, the thing there is that by law, they can collect the information because that's their Wi-Fi and that's for work. So your data might be collected. Your client might be using their employer's internet, and this is being recorded. Or maybe even a jealous partner, who is able to and get what you're talking about, if you're talking about her or him in therapy. So you have to be careful about these things here. So here, so again, Online Therapy Institute of United Kingdom, Dr. Laurie Stretch, they recommend, this is what they recommend, right? Laurie Stretch now is more for representing the US. They recommend Zoom, VC, and Doxy.me. These are platforms that have been tested, that are what they call this, encrypted, very strong protection of privacy. Obviously, we know that Zoom had been having problems because maybe because everybody's using it, and therefore hackers have really tried to, and some have been successful. However, I think at least from what I've heard, now again, I'm not an expert here. You have to refer to more experts in technology, that they've what they call is taking care of these glitches, of these intrusions of hackers. And like, for example, I think one thing is that they've changed also the sharing of that only the host can share pictures, graphs, or in like now I'm doing, without the permission of the host. I could not have been able to present my PowerPoint, my deck here, right? So then they say again that FaceTime and WhatsApp is okay. It's kind of protection is quite good, But then they say that they do not recommend Skype, Messenger, or Viber, And so these are, in general, these are the things that we Zoom. This one here, Zoom, VC, and Doxy.me are all here, are being all used in the Philippines. So I think Zoom is the most popular. So we're because again, familiarity is very important. You're on camera. Here. When doing telecounseling, the camera of your laptop is best placed from down up your face like this. Is it like that? Better like this? Or from up, I'm looking up, or level, or far enough so you can see me. All right. So what's that? I hope you're looking at C, at the level, eye level. It's better eye level or a bit higher your eye level, right? So, okay. Eye contact. It is important in suggesting whose turn it is to speak, right? You know, you can, through eye contact, you can say, okay, I want to say something. It's important that your client feels that you are listening to that person, because obviously, right, when you're talking, you're looking at the picture of your client. You're not looking at the camera wherein then he or she sees that you are looking at her. You're looking at the face of the picture. And obviously you want to look at there because you want to see her expressions and everything like that, right? So it's important to be able to tell one another, look, it's like this, right? It's not that I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at you in the picture, you know. Or sometimes maybe you're doing notes, right? Note taking, right? And so it's important that maybe you're not looking at it. But again, you know, you're listening. She knows that you're listening. Another thing is that, you know, sometimes because you get tired and everything, you kind of, and you're used to you're looking at a screen and you think you're watching a TV show, you know, that you're a passive watcher. Instead, no, you're an engaged watcher. No, you're there engaged in building something with this person here. No, so again, no. You can do this again, always improve on this always in terms of practice. Gesture, you know, right? Sometimes, you know, when we go like that, you know, I use a lot my hands and everything like that. But sometimes it disturbs, you know, it depends on the quality of your laptop, obviously. But sometimes it disturbs the picture on how it gets, how it's seen the other side, you know, and it becomes jumpy, blurry, breaking up, you know. So they say, if you want to move your hands, move it without the camera seeing it so much, you know. So I can still use my hands, but it's under, and you don't see it. Clothing, dress as you would for a face-to-face session, right? Obviously, you know, sometimes you dress up only up to you know, your shirt, a nice iron shirt, you know, and then in your pants or your pajamas. They say it's better to dress up completely, whole thing, so that you feel that you're going into in therapy session, you know, right? You're going to office and everything like that. Again, that's your own taste. I'm not saying that I'm in pajamas in terms of I have my pants, I'm all dressed up as if I'm basic. But sometimes, you know, your comfort zone is what's important, and obviously then you want to give that to, you want to be focused completely for your client. Remember, you're on camera, right? You're not a passive receiver of TV. You're engaging in a relationship, and being alone in a room does not change that. Backdrop, you know, what you're seeing behind, you know, as much as possible, to 40-30%, your if not your therapy room, but you know, a counseling room, right? It's best, you know, that because then they also they feel, right, they recognize that, and therefore it adds to their connection with you, in order to facilitate that connection. Lighting is important, right? Top lighting is important. They say, I don't use it much, but they say that if you have a lampshade on your side and light is coming from on the side, it kind of livens your, you know, it becomes a bit more alive, the picture that comes out. I haven't tried it yet, but they recommend that. One very important thing is that you should not have light coming from behind, right? Usually coming from the window. right? The window, and then boom, the sun comes out, and there's strong light, and they see your, your face as white. And so be careful with that. So in terms of lighting. Eyeglasses. I have small eyeglasses, so usually I don't think I have that problem of reflections. But however, if you have a bigger glasses like that, sometimes it reflects the screen, and what you see is the reflection in the eye, and you don't see the eyes. And it's so important, right, to be able to see the eyes, because to understand the emotions accurately, and so, but the solution usually they say is that you put the bow, the back of your lenses a bit higher, so that then there's an angle in terms of, and so there's less reflection. If it doesn't work, then you have to work on your lights. Camera angle, right? Again, right? As we said, it has to be level of your eyes, or if not, a bit higher. There's more connection there. There's more possibility of as if it's closer to seeing as if you're looking. Headsets are recommended, right? That's why call centers and have headsets, right? And mics, because then they're able to talk more comfortably, clearer, and everything. Hear clearer and everything like that. And then maybe some people do not like to be seen in camera by themselves. So sometimes you kind of there are, right, the pane, the preview pane of your laptop that you see the person. So it's, I think it's the speakers. In Zoom, it's a speaker view, and then there's the gallery view. You're both equally there. And if you don't want to see yourself too much, you want to focus more on it, you put the speaker, or you can put your picture on top and really see more your client, right? And so your choice. Telephone. Let's see our time, 11:19. Telephone. Here is that it's no visual stimulus, right? But it's live. It's synchronous. Diba? It's really more tiring, they say. It's really more tiring. To compensate for the loss of visual cues is paying attention closely to the nuances, the tones, the face, and other noises, right? So again, it could, though, bring more insight or depth of connection, because of this intense listening of ours. Now, the slight tension in the voice, a movement of extra pause or extraneous sounds like eating, yawning, or walking around the room will all communicate something about what is happening at the other end of that phone line, and our imagined empathic understanding of the other person is enhanced as a result. So not being in the same room is necessarily different, obviously, right? Not seeing your client or only hearing their voice does mean you will miss some information you would otherwise have. But you will also notice other things. So it is making the most of the opportunities of whatever means of communications you are using that will maintain and may even enhance the quality of relationship you have with your client. Okay, written communication. Text, email, letters. These communications need to be treated with care and appropriate confidentiality. Again, right? Again, the encryption. These are hush mail, proton mail. It's not very popular here in the Philippines, but these ones here are services providers that they assure you of a high level of privacy protection. It's automatically encrypted. Again, I consulted our IT in this thing here, And so she explained to me that this is something that if you use that, you can connect your email to it, and then your email that you send. So maybe sometimes recommendation would be to separate your, obviously your professional work and your personal work, right? You have your work email and your personal email. And so then in written communication, you can be casual or more formal, professional. But what's important is you be intentional. Diba? It's important also that you sound like yourself, obviously. But obviously, more important is that you try to understand how your client wants to see you in writing. Right? So that would be the style. Now, netlingo.com. You know this thing here, right? This is kind of a dictionary of the language or the communication that's being used in net. So there are different things, LOL, right? BTW. Obviously, what I am using are my old generation. There are a lot more. I looked at it. There are a lot more that I do not know. There are numbers that say I love you. There are numbers that say different things. Then do not attempt to use acronyms or emojis if you're not familiar with them, right? Dima? Make sure that you know what you're saying, and also, but what's best is be led by your client's use of them, right? Because you also have to make sure that your client understands them, right? So it's important what they use, you use, and just go the way they go. Messages in between sessions, right? Because they think that you are there, you're working online. It's easier to assume that you are always there, present, available for them, so they can call you, anytime. So you might be able to inform them. It's good to inform them that, look, I'm not. If ever you need to text me, you can text me, but maybe I will not be able to answer immediately because I'm doing other things and I've been under sessions, so inform them. And then maybe it's also good to inform them that you do not do counseling via text, and that usually these issues here, because sometimes they send you text messages, about their life stories, and how can you answer, right? How do you answer those, even though if you really want to answer them, you empathize with them, but how can you answer that, right? And so it's good to be able to tell them that these are things that we can discuss in our sessions, in our next sessions, right? Okay, now we go into ethical standards on online practice. So this is a summary. I got this from a source, but I looked at also the different code of ethics of counseling related organizations, like the American Counseling Association, American Psychological Association, Philippine Guidance Counseling Association, PGCA, right? All these things. And the British Counseling and Association of Counseling Psychotherapy, they all have, the Association for Addiction Professionals. They all have code of ethics and sections of theirs. PGCA we still don't have, but we already have an interim guideline, and soon we will put also code of ethics for online practice. And therefore, this is a summary of all and these are the points that are being presented in the code of ethics in the section of online practice. So screening. Screening is, I screen my clients if they are okay for for online work? Do they know how to use technology? And they understand it? What type of previous experience do they have? What did they like? What did they not like? How frustrated does this person get with technology, right? Should be able to understand that. What do they do when they get frustrated? And what type, and then what type of network is this person going to use? Is it compatible to mine? And another thing is that also, is this person here, the case that he's presenting, is it compatible to online practice, online telecounseling? Like, for example, issues. If your client has online addiction, maybe you'll have to think twice if this is a good thing for him to work online, right? Because maybe that brings him closer to his addiction. How do you manage that? So it overlaps in your work. Emotional state, high risk suicide. It's so frustrating. But sometimes you have to do it because it's there. However, it's really frustrating. It's not easy. So usually it's better that in these things here, it's better to give them the protocol. Go to the emergency room. This is the thing. This is what you have to do. It's suicide watch and everything. This is the main thing that we want to do. It's their safety that we want to assure. And then other psychiatric conditions, psychosis, medications, for example, if there's need of medication, so also to render therapy possible, and therefore, again, right, these are things that we have to be able to screen. So let's skip that. I just mentioned that. Informed consent. Informed consent, right? It contains the rights and responsibilities of both counselors and clients. And so this is something that we have to have written down and we have to present to our clients in our first meeting. And this is something also that's ongoing. It's not a one-time process, but it's an ongoing process that as we go along in our counseling process, there are points that we have to inform, we have to give and ask the consent of our clients, right? So here are some of the things that should be in that form. The distance counseling credentials, your credentials, how you're able to do this, what training, the risk and benefits of engaging in use of distance. We have to say that, right? The research that we've seen, we have to say that also, but also the difference that there is with face-to-face. Possibility of technology failure, alternative methods and service, right? And then minors, right? Minors. How do we deal with them? For example, minors, maybe I can use this already here. Minors here at InTouch, what we do is that with minors, they have to have a parent or a guardian with them while we do telecounseling. For adolescents, it might be a bit different because then we can do there's someone who is discreetly with them while they are doing therapy. Because obviously for the effectiveness of our counseling, this is true also for face-to-face. We kind of want to give them also that as they are 15, 16 years old, right? They kind of want to be, in terms of given a certain sense of freedom, liberty. And so we respect that. And so the guardian or that would be discreetly participating, maybe doesn't really need to hear everything what's being said, but there's visual view. So anticipated response time, right? Sometimes again at the failure, when what happens, emergency procedures to follow when counselor is not available, so again, who to call, right? Suicide cases, right? So who calls, who supports that, and then there are cultural and language differences that may affect the delivery of the service. Right. Okay. Boundaries. We have 30 minutes, but we want to have questions and answers. Let's keep that. Sorry. Be proactive than reactive in creating boundaries. Facebook friends, right? Diba? Do we accept that? No, obviously we do not want. It's just like in face-to-face, but in working tele-counseling, it becomes closer. There's that possibility of, oh, hey, let's be friends. No? And sometimes it's for good intention because they want to give us more information about themselves. But we say that, no, it's better that we don't. We don't do that usually professionally because because we want to be able to protect your confidentiality also. No? Then also in terms of we want to be objective in understanding you. We may want, obviously we want a lot of information about you, but we want to hear it from you and not gather it from other sources or social media, right? And so we, in terms of maybe also we might have common friends, right? And that blurs the relationship, right? Virtual office, we kind of talked about that, right? And so in this thing here is a bit more, what happens usually is that working from home, you know, we have our kids and everything, our pictures and everything like that. Okay, what's important is that you want to be able to communicate to them that you're doing therapy and not just hanging out, you know, being at home, relaxing, and just this is just a chat, you know, but it's something real that we're working on. Right. I think this one here, we did this also in terms of them calling you anytime, day and night. Your work environment as professional, work life, as your face-to-face practice, you know, possibility of interruptions, you know, make sure of that, diba? You know, aside from the technology, but also in terms of people coming in, you know, it's like again putting a do not disturb sign outside your door. Disclosure are the things that we tell our clients, you know, we can do this, we should be able to do this. So again, this is part of the informed consent. Then again, we talked about that, the minors backup plan, you know. Again, we talked about this thing here. If there's a failure, you know, 5 minutes, then we use the telephone. Potential misunderstanding, we're usually looking at face-to-face person in the screen, right? Yeah. And so, oh yeah, one thing important, for example, right? We have to know where our client is. Usually if they use it and they're at home, you know, we recognize that. But then we see that it's a different place and everything. It's good that we know where they are located. I mean, their address. You know, sometimes it may sound funny and sometimes, but you know, what if your client starts choking and then boom, it's all dark. The screen is all dark. What happens, right? So it's better that we know that. Sometimes in domestic violence situations, you know, I had a friend who was saying that, you know, talking like that, and then all of a sudden he sees someone the screen, it's confusing, and the client yells, and boom, it's all dark. You know, again, also in terms of when there's domestic violence situations, we have to be very careful that our clients are protected, you know, and therefore also the privacy is very important. There is much more probability that people would, or the other person, the perpetrator, would want to see what's happening in what you're doing with the client, right? So it's important that all the technical aspects that can protect that. Recording your sessions, again, we talked about that. Documentation, it's important that we continue rigorously doing our documents as if face-to-face. No. Complete your initial assessment, complete your treatment plans with your case conceptualizations, right? Your progress notes, your counseling notes. Make sure you document. It's very important. We continue doing that. And I think it's even more important now because then it benefits us also in terms of if ever, of learning more of this new experience, no, this new modality. Contracting, okay, there we are. This is contracting with our clients, right? We have to raise the important issues, important things. Again, check your client's understanding, you know, and ensure that they are properly informed. In case of heightened and vulnerable emotions, right? Again, maybe, you know, some suggestions would be you create an easy to follow protocol, again, as we suggested, you know, for technical, but also for non-technical issues. We can also, they say, for example, create a code word to communicate presence of uninvited individuals. You know, right? Sometimes when you're talking like that and somebody enters the room and this one here shouldn't be hearing what we, and so maybe you create a word, you know, say for example, wall, or you know, oh, so the wall became white, or it became as when I say the word wall, then I know that when you say the word, I know that there's someone there, and so we shift. So there's that code, you know, that we understand, the two of us only, you know, so to us to protect the privacy and the safety of our client. Don't take for granted, right? The phone numbers that you get, the emails that you get so that you can communicate, make sure that they are the ones who receive your text, right? Sometimes you call and then you send text and maybe it's the other person who reads that. Make sure that it's and obviously sending very difficult or sensitive, you'll have to think twice if you really need to do that. Right? In terms of the email, also make sure that it's only her, or if ever you need to send those sensitive information. Again, encrypted as much as possible. No. So you have to consider especially the degree of risk in a domestic abuse situation, you know, because there is more probability of being intruded into. No, this one here is 95% of clients Google therapists before meeting them, right? And this is true also for face-to-face, right? They look at it. So what is this saying? What this is saying is that be careful with what you have there about you. If necessary, change your privacy settings, right? Make sure, be intentional in terms of what you post. This is for everyone. This is not for everyone, right? Separate professional and personal accounts. You know, there's also a risk of allowing dual relationship to form in these things here. When liking, friending, putting likes in, you know, this kind of threatens the confidentiality of your client. So again, you know, we have to be careful with this thing. Okay, we're almost done. If ever this one here, emerging criminal activities, if ever there's anything, you know, hurting also. So it's important that you have your list, as also in face-to-face, you have your list of organizations that are better suited to dealing with this situation. And then you go into be able to give this, to communicate with them. You know, again, also, right, in terms of criminal cases, if ever you're called in court, records of therapy may be subpoenaed in court, you know, also here in the Philippines, and information and about when and how they happened when it's in online, when we're doing online, is much more readily discoverable and may include detailed information that was not intended to be recorded. Right? Maybe you're not recording, but right, they can dig in and find that. So again, let's be very intentional and very aware of this thing. So I think that's it, because this one here is note taking that we talked about. And so thank you very much. So I hope we learned something from this webinar, and that we can, again, right, this is not a full-blown training, but at least, we can have some things to start with to be able to be safe in our practice of telecounseling, and be able to continue supporting our clients, our students, and so thank you very much. And I hope we learned something from this.
Thank you very much, Doc Julian, with this informative webinar. Actually, for our participants, when we are discussing actually regarding the webinar or the topic of Doc Julian, and we have decided actually, because there are some who suggested that this should only be given to professionals, or I mean the guidance counselors. However, there are also suggestions that we will open this to the public, so to educate ang ating general public regarding about the tele and web counseling. Now, as we go about sa ating mga questions sa YouTube, maybe a sort of confusion to some of our participants. Again, we are clear, or the PGCA is clear about this, that only the licensed counselors can do the counseling. And when we say counseling, it can be done through face-to-face interaction, or right now with the new normal, we can do this through web or telecounseling. For non-licensed, for those who are not licensed, you can do the psychological first aid, or there are some here, they are talking about the mental health first aid. Now for the PFA, we have already discussed PFA last month, but however, you can still watch our webinar replay through our YouTube channel. So I was the one who discussed this, the PFA through yung topic natin, blended hugs. Okay. Now, Doc Julian, we have a number of questions actually. Ang dami nila. Now, first question, Doc Jul, with the kind of intermittent internet connection we have in the Philippines, isn't it more stressful for both the counselor and the counselee when the communication is erratic? So how to mend this kind of problem po?
Yes, for sure, for sure. So that's the thing. The thing that we can do really is to make sure that we have good connection. And if not, then we don't even enter into doing web counseling. Maybe we could shift to telephone counseling, because precisely it's out of our control, right? If we're not able to fix that, it's more frustrating if we even try doing it. And so let's go to another medium that is more stable, and usually that would be the telephone.
Okay, thank you, Doc Julian. So pag hindi web, then we can do the telephone counseling or through a hotline. Second question, so ano po ba yung legal basis in this online counseling? Siguro, as I have mentioned, counselors and psychologists are expressly provided sa bawat law, RA 9258 and RA 11029, to do counseling. So that's the legal basis, and it's the manner of delivering lang the counseling. They can do counseling way back in the old, well, before the COVID or the pre-COVID, we can have the face-to-face interaction. However, with this COVID pandemic, we now shift to tele and web counseling. But again, it's a manner of delivery only. Okay. Another question, this is more of the informed consent. This is in counseling. So if you go into counseling, if you are a client, it is very important that you must have the informed consent. And even in RA 11036, otherwise known as the mental health law, very important din yung informed consent for our service users. So in RA 11036, the client is referred as the service user. Now, a question, Doc Julian, do we need to use an informed consent form before giving online counseling? So I read that one of the ethical considerations is this, but the information came from the, I think it's American Counseling Association. Again, Doc Julian, please.
Yes. Oh, yes, we have to. This is online counseling, telecounseling is a counseling process. So also in our code of ethics, in the PGCA code of ethics, we have a section of about informed consent. And we have to do that. We have to follow that. And now we are converting our services to online. And therefore, we continue having informed consent. And we have to be able to present this. It's best that it's written down so that then we are able to present this to our clients at the first session. And as I said, it's a process that maybe as we go along, sometimes we have to go back to the informed consent. Right. But yes, very strong. Yes, we have to still do informed consent. And it's much, I think it's even more, necessary to do it because precisely of the technology issues that we have to straighten up, to make sure that there are, the first question, right? If there's erratic and everything, we can't do that, right? We have to manage that before we even do telecounsel or web counsel.
Yes, Doc Julian, the next questions would be more of the ethics. Since we have discussed first the informed consent, follow up din po, how can we have informed consent in web counseling? Will it be given, will it be okay to do it verbally or should it be signed?
It could be, usually what we do in practice is that we email it to our client. And then in terms of signing it, there are programs that can indicate, I don't remember now, there are services that docu.com, something like that. And that is something that they click that and it's indicated that they sign. So these are possible things. But however, again, we email that. It's important that they receive that they know that. Maybe they can confirm that they received it and they can put agree, right? And therefore, that's kind of maybe already a signature. But then also at the start of the session, we go through that, and we make sure that this is. So maybe if you want to adopt that practice of 30 minutes, give him 30 minutes free counseling, maybe free before the first session, to be able to kind of work out the logistics. You could put there the informed consent, but usually this is done in the first session. And yes, we have to.
Yes, and to add, Doc Julian, the informed consent is given at the start of the session, but the counselors or the therapists have also the responsibility to give this informed or to remind the client or the service user of this informed consent even while in the middle or in between of the sessions. Yes. Another question. The informed consent naman when it comes to minors. So for counselors handling elementary pupils, can they use tele or web counseling, or how do we go about this informed consent thing with our minors? kailangan po ba yun na nandyan yung parent, or do we really need to get the consent of the parent? Yes, Doc Julia.
Right. So this is there are kind of two different things, right? The informed consent has to be given also in schools, right? And when you start, you inform that, right? You inform your students about what are the risks, what are needed, and everything like that, right? That's given. Now, in terms of approval of your in terms of the presence of your parent or your guardian there while therapy, yes, that is required, by law. That is required by law. Again, however, that is the choice of a parent, right, or a guardian, but by law that is required. Another thing, though, is that if you are working as a guidance counselor, you're working for an organization already. You're not in private practice. Private practice, you have to have the approval and everything like that to do even counseling, right? To do even counseling with a minor, you have to have the approval. In school, if you're working for a school, you don't need to do that because it's already agreed that that is a service as part of the institution. So usually it is already understood that that is part of the service, and you're doing counseling is part of the service given by the school to be able to help our students.
Yes, okay, Doc Julian. Now, another question. This is with regards to fees, especially for our private practitioners.
Yeah.
Okay. Maging same lang po ba yung fee ng online counseling sa face-to-face?
Yes, yes. They say this is now from the Online Therapy Institute. They're saying that yes, it is the same because your time online and face-to-face, it has the same value. So it's the same. It's not that they're going to put it down or whatever. It's the same because the service that you're giving has the same value. And maybe online, if you think about it, as we discussed, there's more intent, more really participation, attention, and everything like that. It's more tiring. But yes, it's the same value. It's the same charge.
Yes, Doc Julian. Thank you for that. Now let's go back to technology. What should we do when the counselee suddenly disconnect to the session? What are the protocols?
Intentional?
Yeah, you can discuss siguro both intentional and non-intentional. Kasi yung the other follow-up question here is how can we say that, in tele or web counseling, how could it be possible that my counselee is lying, for example? There is a question like this one.
Ooh.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think it's a good question. Sige, you can go.
Okay. Well, if it's cut, right, it's our protocol. Our protocol is that one there, right? If it's cut unintentional or intentionally, hopefully it's unintentional, then we have that 5-minute gap of trying leeway of trying to reconnect, and if not, then we use the phone. We have a second plan B fallback, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is this: the possibility of the person being playing, and it's open, right, to that one online disinhibition effect, right? That's a big possibility of playing not the real self and everything like that. Again, if ever that happens, again, that is counseling material, right? Because then it's not that in counseling, if we discover a person, the client lying, for example, right? Even in face-to-face, when we discover a client who's lying, we do not work into terms of blaming the client because he lied or you're so bad that you're lying. No, we try to process that behavior, right? We try to learn from that behavior. Where is it coming from? So as our ultimate goal is to be able to to help that person also from that negative behavior to learn to how to improve, how to be able to how to improve his well-being, right? And so we process that, and so also in counseling we process that. So again, that's an example, right? In terms of because of the difference of online counseling, our clients are more prone to have an ideal vision of us. And that's good. That's okay, right? However, it's even better if we're able to discuss that, right? It's good to be able to discuss that and learn from it. Why are you seeing me this way? And this is my real me. And where's that coming from? What's the need that is satisfying and everything, and process it. Again, not to blame the person, but to be able to help the person.
Yes, thank you, Doc Julian. We are, wow, there are so many questions, and we are, aside from being overwhelmed, we are grateful for some questions that actually it gives us the direction for the practice of counseling in the Philippines. Maraming salamat po for the questions. Kasi for example, there is this question. Is there any standard pricing implemented among the guidance counselors when it's a practice of counseling? Well, I think we have also the PR board here and the board of directors of the PGCA. I think this is a good question that maybe for now, Doc Julian can would not answer for now. Pass lang muna. But I think this is a very good question na binibigay sa atin as a board of directors. Now, Doc Julian, let's go back sa technology. Kasi we have, there are questions po dito. For example, is Google Meet a recommendable one? I mean, as an app. Then there is this one, there are some that they are using only free Facebook. On the side of a counselor, do we need to accommodate them by using free Facebook because of the ethical considerations?
Yeah, that's why it's not recommended. It's what is recommended are what I said, right? The Zoom, the Doximy, and the VC. Those are what's recommended. Then possibly FaceTime and the what they call this, the WhatsApp, right? Skype, Messenger, they're not recommended because of privacy issues. Now, again, also with the ones that are recommended, there's always a free version and a paid version. Obviously, a free version has a bit of less protection, privacy protection. Obviously, a business or paid version has more, because then you enter also into a business agreement with these people here, and therefore they assure that there is privacy in terms of. So again, right? The Google Meet, MS Team. I'm not sure about that. In terms of, it's really more used in schools, right? In teaching, in group, and everything like that. So I really don't know. I'm not privy in answering that. Maybe a technical person. I don't think so. It's not being recommended openly. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Doc Julian. There are we have participants, especially from our teachers from the public schools. We need to kasi I think there are some na iba yung tingin nila when it comes, or iba yung definition nila when it comes to counseling. Again, we would like to remind our participants that counseling is a professional service of a counselor or a psychologist. And when we say counseling, dapat po yung trained at saka competent yung makagawa po niyan. And please be reminded that the practice of, for example, of counseling and psychology was professionalized, and that act of professionalization is for the protection of the general public. Hindi lang po ginawa ang batas para magiging batas lamang. However, the purpose of the law is to protect. Kasi remember, even if you do the psychological first aid, one of the principles is doing or do no harm. So, well, for some na gusto nila mag-counseling, again, please remember, do no harm. Okay? That is one thing we need to consider. Then another one, Doc Julian, how to handle clients who think na tayo counselors are always accessible to them by sending messages through text or email. Balik tayo sa ethics.
Again, sorry, Francis.
Again, how to handle clients who think na tayo ng mga counselors are always accessible to them by sending messages through text or email. Again, we go back to ethics.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, again, diba, it's preparation. We have to inform. That's informed consent. That's part of informed consent also. We have to be able to tell them that, yes, we are not just like genies, that you wish and they're, boom, they're immediately there. So we have to inform them that you don't do texting or emailing and you don't do counseling through that medium. And then that they should know that it is not, there's no real time in real response, that maybe you'll be replying after even, Usually it's better that you don't give out your phones, but sometimes you have to give your phone number because of the need of the service and everything like that. And so, but important thing is that they know that you cannot reply immediately. Others, what they have used, what they have made, and this one in practice, this is more from outside. What they've done is that they've been given different prices when it's working hours, when it's hours in the evening, and when it's nighttime, when it's sleeping time. And lahat yan, these have more and more expensive, so my time is more expensive as it goes up. So again, there's it's the communication is that, look, you want me to serve you at this time here, wee hours of the day, then okay, but it's more expensive. So it's not really the practice. So again, we have to be clear already with them immediately that this is how we handle texts, emails, or any written communication.
Yes, Doc Julian, siguro we can accommodate two more questions. But before that, there are some expressions here from our colleagues in the Department of Education. Ano daw yung gagawin nila kasi walang counselors? And I think it's been, a factor or nakikita nating response here because walang counselor yung DepEd. So it's up din sa ating participants that we will convince or we tell our legislators and even tell our education policymakers or education officials that they should hire counselors. And by hiring counselors, we are actually fulfilling laws, just like, for example, the RA 11036, otherwise known as the mental health law. Since nakapalagay doon na dapat yung schools natin ay may mga counselors po or mental health professionals. So hopefully, this is an eye-opener na ito pala, kailangan yung counselors. Pero right now, the existing system sa ating example sa public basic education. So how can we attract counselors if yung ating system or ang ating career progression hindi naman siya attractive. So why invest when when hindi ka naman for example from the economical or practical point of view, hindi ka naman makakuha ng return on investment na matitengga ka lang at a certain level which you cannot be promoted. Wala ka namang career progression. So I think it's one of our advocacies also to or maparami yung counselors natin is to put things into order, especially ang career progression system natin even in the higher education institutions. Now, Doc Julian, okay, but before that also, anong gagawin nila? So we are also proposing to DepEd that they will have remote PFA. So that's yun po ginagawa ngayon ng PGCA. Doc Julian, another thing, shall we engage in counseling with a client who conceals his or her identity po?
Okay. No, the thing is that we have to make sure in our screening, right, that we have to know that who we're working with, right? And so if he wants to conceal that, then maybe that's a block in our work. However, if he says, okay, I want to do this and everything, and we explain to him the limitations of this thing here, and he still wants to, and he gives that permission, then maybe we can work with him, you know. And however, he knows that there is the limitation is that, because we never know about the situations, right? I had clients before, and this is face to face, who didn't want to use their name, right? And so, okay, you don't want to use your name, but that's what you want. You're the client, and so important thing is that you inform the client that these are the limitations of these ones here and everything like that. But in terms of, because of his reasons of confidentiality and everything, then okay, we can work on that, right? So also in online, I think that could apply.
Okay, thank you, Doc Julian. Now, reminders to our participants. So please answer the post-test and evaluation. So a link will be provided in a separate post sa ating pong PGCA official page. Again, yung post-test and evaluation link ay doon po sa ating PGCA official page. Then we would like to remind our participants that your e-certificates will be emailed sa inyong email addresses na indicated. Please check if tama po ba yung ating email addresses, and please check yung mga spelling ng ating mga pangalan. Please give us time to send it to you. If you have concerns po, we have a separate email po for PGCA, for webinar certificate concerns. Now, for other webinars, so ngayon we are, nasa Tele and Web Counseling tayo with Doc Julian. Then we will have on Thursday, Father RC on facing grief during the pandemic. So kita-kits tayo on Thursday, 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And this is our batch 2 of our free webinar series. So on Friday, we have Doc Sheikh Hoxon, our past president ng PGCA. So the topic is dealing with gaming and social media addiction for a better new normal. Then on Tuesday next week, it would be me hosting the crash course, guidance counseling. So for those na, well, you want to be a counselor, please join us again for this discussion on what is really guidance in counseling. So you might need this one to really appreciate ano yung value po ng ating guidance counselors, not only in our educational system, but also in our communities. Then following that, June 18, we have Father Ted, Mental Health, Lessons from the Masters. Then on June 23, we will deal with the relevant issues or issues and challenges of the guidance counselors. please join me again on June 23, that is Tuesday. Then following Thursday, we have our president, Dr. Adelaida Hines, with the topic Best Fit Therapeutic Practices During the COVID-19 Contagion. And on June 26, we have Dr. Maria Lourdes Medina, Quality of Life in Times of Crisis. Doc Julian, before we we wrap up, there is this question, last na po. The question is about suicide. Shall we handle a suicide caller or a suicide case in or via web or telecounseling?
As I said before, right, depends on the degree, right, how you get it. So usually when we get it, for example, in our crisis line, they call up and it's an active suicide case, we immediately give them the protocol that it is emergency room. If it's rated, if it's assessed to be high, risky, active, that's emergency room. That's not even for counseling because we can't really do much about that, right? If it's there, it has to be suicide watch, some medication to calm the person down, everything like that. Now, if ever this reaches you, obviously you'll have to handle that, right? And usually what reaches, and so these cases here also, we do also our risk assessment. And again, if it is really high active, then emergency room. That's the protocol. Now, there are other levels of suicide intention, the levels. So if it is a moderate high and down, then yes, we can do counseling. We can do online with counseling. I've done even counseling in terms of telephone counseling with suicide cases, active suicide cases, and I've done also after that text messages because you adapt to the situation, right? You adapt to the situation. Obviously, this is not counseling. It is barely synchronous communication. But again, you have to adapt to the situation. So you have to handle that, and you do your best. You do what you can to support.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc Julian. So we would like to remind our participants and the general public, you can follow us, or please follow us on our social media accounts sa ating pong Facebook page, PGCA Official. Then we have our Twitter account at Official PGCA. And right now we are streaming live via our YouTube channel, PGCA Philippine Counselor. So please stay tuned for the link. Please be reminded that our link, post-evaluation link, shall be posted on our Facebook page, PGCA Official. And we would like also to thank yung ating we would like to thank yung ating very hardworking and efficient na mga members ng secretariat team. Sila po yung in charge ng ating registration and ng ating mga certificates. So we have Sir Dan Talusan, yung ating secretary, and the assistant secretary, Ma'am MC Garcia. Then we have our PGCA staff po, Miss Juvie Andeleon, Mr. Vince Sarcon, and of course, Miss Justin Joyce Bual. So with us also are in our webinar our PR board members and of course the PGCA board of directors. Now, again, thank you for your participation. I hope may mga bagay kayo na na-clarify. If you have concerns, you can email us sa ating PGCA Secretariat regarding license or membership concerns. If you have stories about sa ating mga counselors, you can email sa ating social media na Gmail, pgca.socmed@gmail.com. So with that, we thank you everyone for your participation and have a good day. Thank you very much and mabuhay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.